Considering how Odyssey is mostly considered a step in a new direction for 3D Mario platformers, what is going to be the next step? A lot of people likes to bring up the side mode of the switchboard of Super Mario 3D World, Bowser's Fury, as a dream scenario of how a new 3D Mario might play out. But is it actually a viable direction for the series? This was supposed to be a small little mini review for the end of my Odyssey video to kinda round it out and speculate on what's next for the eventual new entry in the 3D Mario series. But life got in the way and I decided to just focus on the big one and then leave Bowser's Fury as its own separate thing between Odyssey and the next Ratchet & Clank video. Anyways, so what exactly is Bowser's Fury doing which makes so many people wish for Nintendo to pursue what is obviously a proof of concept addition to a re-released Wii U game included in order to give more incentive to people to buy it for the Switch? Well, to start with, this is an open world game where you run around as Mario and visit a bunch of different locales and collect cat shines in order to clean the corruption off of the giant cat bells centered in each region of the map. Why? That's why. I think Bowser is by far the most interesting thing about this game, so let's get him out of the way first. I love this version of Bowser so much. He really feels appropriately terrifying, and every time he appears, my pulse goes up a couple of beats per minute. This guy will go ham on you every time he appears, and unless you find a cat shine which activates a light tower that scares him away, or collect the giant cat bell to become Super Saiyan 2 and beat the shit out of him, he'll keep harassing you until he gets tired and leaves. Not only does that take a little while, but his attacks are relentless and can be really hard to avoid if you're caught off guard. It also doesn't help that he's smart enough to relocate whenever he can't get to you. Having this threat constantly looming over you is a very unique feeling for a Mario game, though after a while he kinda starts to lose the threatening presence that makes him such a special addition to the game and turns into more of an annoying obstacle to overcome than anything else. I do love this version of Bowser, but it can get a bit much sometimes, which is why it's fun to beat him senseless as giant Super Saiyan Cat Mario. These fights are actually really fun, especially for a game like this. Oh, and speaking of Dragon Ball references, in the last fight, after you collect 100 shines, it almost looks like Bowser enters some Ultra Instinct state, based on his design with the white hair and stuff. I wish the prize was more than just having the Super Saiyan Cat look whenever you're in the cat suit, though. Whenever you fend him off, he retreats back to his lair in the middle of the overworld map, which you can see from pretty much everywhere you are, where he'll slowly rise up from the ground, which gives you a pretty good idea of when he'll appear, in addition to the weather going berserk and the ominous music and sound effects that'll play whenever he activates. The problem is that I feel like he appears a bit too often, and while the world does change a little bit whenever he appears, it doesn't make up for the onslaught of attacks or the actual changes that happens. He does have a use, though, since there will be a spot in every level which has special Bowser blocks that can only be destroyed by his fire breath, and which hides a cat shine. The moment you collect a shine, he'll disappear, of course, so this is going to be your objective for whenever he appears when you're in one of the levels. Whenever you're not though, it's usually a race to the nearest patch of cover, and there's not always anything within the vicinity, or towards the nearest unrelated shine. In the post-game, there will appear a floating golden island at 5 different spots on the map. It's actually the same island with 5 shines on it, but whenever you collect one of the shines on it, it won't appear at that spot again. I don't quite understand the purpose behind this island, except for there to be some extra shines to collect whenever Bowser appears. It's not like it's very hard to get to any of these islands, and since we're only there in the post-game, their locations are all marked on the map. So it's just a matter of being in the vicinity around the time when Fury Bowser activates in order to get a free shine and quickly return the level to normal. Also, a side effect of Bowser being scared away by the cat shines, which are the main collectible in the game, so you'll be collecting a lot of them, is that he'll often spawn as you're in the middle of collecting one. This makes it so that you have to either give up on the shine you're currently after, or you'll need to wait for him to appear again if you need him to destroy blocks, or the only thing left to do on the part of the map you're on is use the Super Bell to defeat him in order to gain access to the next set of levels. As far as I know, there's no way to intentionally trigger him, so while I do think he appears too often, ironically, he also takes too long to appear sometimes, if that makes sense. As for the changes to the game levels and overworld that happens when he appears, it's very rare that these gives you access to an otherwise inaccessible place or change anything notable at all, the most honestly being that these small cats become hostile for some reason. At first glance, it might seem like some of these places are unreachable without the platforms and blocks that appears during Bowser time, but often they'll provide you with a path as the level changes, which brings me to the real meat of the game. First of all, I think it's important to go over how Mario controls. Since this is a spin-off from 3D World using the same, well, everything, Mario will behave exactly as in that game. It's almost weird to go from controlling Odyssey Mario to 3D World Mario. To me, it's mainly because of the lack of Cappy, who enables so much mid-air movement in Odyssey. It's so weird not being able to wall jump, cap throw, dive up these ledges that you can't reach with normal jumps. But hey, at least wall jump isn't actual garbage here. Another part about Mario's moveset here that starkly contrasts his other 3D outings is the lack of a triple jump. This has been a staple move throughout all of the game so far, so running around in a vast 3D environment such as this without being able to use it feels almost jarring. It's not as noticeable in the base 3D World game since those levels are structured more like the classic 2D levels and also features very strict camera angles so that it's hard to line up the characters properly to make full use of such a move. It also just doesn't feel like you need it there either, while in Bowser's Fury, just because it's a more open game, having some sort of higher jump that you can execute while running would really help with the flow in places where it's not really important to hinder player movement. Instead, you'll have to either stop and use the ground pound jump or side flip, or jump up the gradually taller steps to the side, and while this is basically just a little almost insignificant nitpick, I just don't see any reason not to have the triple jump available here. Though when actually playing the levels, it doesn't feel like any of the moves are actually missing. I'd love to have moves like the backwards somersault or triple jump just to have the option, but the levels are designed so well around the remaining moveset that it's hard to truly complain. The only times where it feels lacking is during the open world exploring segments, since the long jump and especially the roll kinda sucks, but that's quickly fixed once you gain access to Plessy, who will serve as your means of transportation between islands, and also for some shine challenges throughout the game. While the levels are well designed around Mario's moveset, there's one big part about the game that almost ruins the entire experience for me: the cat suit. This was the main power-up introduced in 3D World, and while it effectively made the game much easier, allowing you to essentially escape death pretty easily just by hugging the nearest wall, it worked well within the pseudo 3D/2D level design that 3D World was going for. Since you were still mostly going from left to right like in the classic 2D games, there weren't that many opportunities to straight up cheese the levels by using the cat suit, either because there weren't obstacles you could particularly leverage the suit's strength to overcome, or simply because you'd run out of stamina trying to climb your way past. They also provided ample incentive to use the other power-ups, not just because they were sometimes more fitting for certain situations, but also because of the level-based structure of the game. Since Bowser's Fury is an open 3D game, if you ever run out of cat suits, you can simply jump off of the level and go to somewhere you know you'll find one and pick it up before you go back. Well, that is if you ever actually run out, because they almost literally shower you with these, so... Anyways, the cat suit essentially breaks the level design in this game for one simple reason. And this is why they usually don't have permanent power-ups that you can take with you between levels in 3D Mario games. Bowser's Fury is an open and freely explorable game with a hub world and levels in the form of islands that can be approached from any angle, as is the nature of a fully 3D game. Because of this, the levels focus a lot on verticality so that you're not able to simply bypass a lot of the challenges by just circling around them. They need to have vertical levels because of the open world approach, seeing as making a long flat level a la 3D World would not just look weird and take up a lot of real estate, but also defeat the entire purpose of having an open world to begin with. And here comes the crux. As you've probably already summarized, this becomes a problem when your main power-up allows you to effortlessly just run up the walls of said levels, essentially removing any kind of challenge that they're trying to present you with. By extension, when one of the power-ups is this overpowered, all the others lose any significance and are rendered useless for anything but a desperation move for when you're about to die and need a few extra hits. There are no real incentives for using the Fire Flower or the Boomerang Flower, like a tight corridor guarded by an enemy or something like that. And even if there were, you could easily just go around, right? And even worse, there's an inventory system where you can store up to 5 of each power-up in the game. And the cat suit effectively has 10 spaces, since the cat bell and that other bell, I guess I'll just call it the e-girl bell, are counted as 2 separate power-ups. But that's not the end for how anti-platformer this game is either, because accompanying you is Bowser Jr., who you can send out to literally collect important objects for you. So if you don't want to bother doing the platforming required to get that slightly out of place cat token, then you can just point your pointer at it and go fetch while you sit back and watch him do all the work. I realized that I brought up a similar point about difficulty in the Odyssey video, but I don't think Mario's movement incites that same platforming joy in Bowser's Fury. At the very least, not enough in order to forego the easy way out. And that's a shame, right? Because there's so much fun level design to be found here. There's a certain childishness. No, that's not quite right. There's a certain childlikeness that's found here which Odyssey lacks. A lot of that obviously has to do with the wildly different art style and presentation choices when it comes to colors and shapes between the two. 3D World, of course, isn't limited to portraying what should feel like real-life locations within the same world, and can instead go wild with imagination, designing locations that are meant to only be platforming challenges without having to worry about the layout for the inevitable inhabitants that we need to get around. That's how you get boost and trampoline spaces, blocks that gradually fall out from under you when you step on them, skates you can sit in as you glide over icy surfaces, orange blocks you stick your head into that act like helicopters, giant rotating cylinders, visible pipes that goes everywhere, and all of this is out in the open, not hidden away in some far-off challenge room or behind the scenery like in Odyssey. And if we look away from the catsuit, this is all really fun to traverse, and since the levels are mostly vertical, there's a real sense of tension here, where even if death is still somewhat meaningless, if you mess up and fall or die, you'll have to climb all the way up again. This is exactly what Odyssey was missing, and if there's one thing I hope they decide to take away from Bowser's Fury and implement into the next 3D Mario game, it's this. Speaking of Odyssey comparisons, Bowser's Fury actually takes some lessons too, but maybe not for the right reasons. A lot of times, when you reach the end of a level and collect the shine, after showing the animation for the lighthouse getting cleaned up, the camera will naturally reposition to show you a shine or a challenge that's out in the overworld. It's kinda like Odyssey's subtle hinting, except it's not subtle at all, and there's a pretty good reason for that, since they desperately want you to go and get it in order to hide how they've actually re-implemented the boot-out mechanic from the other 3D games. It's not like you're actually thrown out of the level though, you're just heavily incentivized to leave, since there's not really anything you can do until you get a set distance away, far enough so that the level can change without you noticing it, and then returning. Each level has a total of 5 cat shines that you can collect. Granted, while you do need to leave and come back for 3 of them, you can still collect the Cat Token and Fury Bowser shines on your first visit. Still though, you will need to leave, and the reason for that is actually very simple, because since the levels are mostly designed with verticality in mind, once you're at the top, that's pretty much it. There are some levels that have goalposts at different places, but for the most part, you will need to climb the level at least 2 or 3 times to get all the shines. Some mix it up a bit by placing a key at the top, which you will need to carry to the bottom without dying, but they're the outliers. The worst are simply repeats of what you did before, while the best ones introduce a lot of either new enemies or different platforms and stuff. Most of them do change somewhat significantly, but at its core, it's still the same level, really. This is a hard problem to sidestep too, because of the nature of the game. I can't really come up with a good idea that doesn't involve automatically sending the player back down to the entrance arch, with the changes to the level happening during that transition, to be honest. And that seems to be what they were trying to avoid by so obviously pointing out shines that can be collected out in the overworld. Honestly, coming away from having played Bowser's Fury, I can't help but feel that if Nintendo were to make another 3D Mario game that's more focused on exploration like 64 and to a certain degree Sunshine, instead of the linear level clear style games that are Galaxy 1 and 2, I think they had the better idea with 64 and all the wacky standalone levels they had going there. That's not to say that I dislike Odyssey more now. I still really appreciate all the small details and lengths they went to in order to make that game work, but in comparison to a game like Bowser's Fury, the environments come off as very un-Mario-like, which is what inspired that one section at the end where I talk about why so many people feel like Odyssey isn't truly a Mario game. Bowser's Fury is definitely a Mario game, but with both good and bad aspects, though I'm willing to let a lot of it slide just because, as I said, this seems more like a proof of concept than anything else. I just really hope that the next iteration of 3D Mario only takes with it the positives, and with this kind of track record, it is looking promising. But who can really tell, right? It's high time we got something truly revolutionizing from a 3D Mario game, I think.